Hi friends, welcome to another YouTube video. Today we're going to talk about the Russian tortoise. So come follow me to their enclosure. Now we're in the enclosure of the Russian tortoise. So right here, we have my first Russian tortoise. This is Boris. He's out basking. It's really early in the morning. He's out basking. See, this is the average size for a male Russian tortoise. They're very small. Um, Now, he was gifted to me by a good friend named Mike, and he might be 30 years old. Um, but you can see that he had something over here. If you look carefully, you see that indent. So new shell growth happened there. There was a white piece of bone, and it popped off, and then you have this new shell growth. And now the traits of a male, they tend to have a blockier head, longer nails, and you see this? They have a really big tail. Now, male Russian tortoises, unlike other tortoises, they don't usually have a concave flash fin, so they're pretty much as flat as the female. Now, a big characteristic is that the males, they have this horny tip right here on the end of their tail, and then they'll carry their tail to the side, and they have this big shield here to protect their this big scoot to protect their tail. Now, the reason they have this big scoot here to protect their tail is because they have all those vital organs in there in order to breed. And you can see they have a V shape. It's a much thinner V than the female. The females have bigger V so they can produce the eggs, and the eggs are pretty reasonable size for the female. Now, let's go find our female. And before we do that, if we check out here, this is a Russian tortoise burrow. Just like sulcatas, they burrow. They can dig maybe 2 feet down, but this is probably less than a foot. Now, they usually go in here when it starts to rain, and if it's really bad, I lock them up inside this enclosure. But you can see that they fit perfectly in there, and they'll stay cool during the hot days in there, and that's when they can go in at night. Now, over here, we have another burrow. This is where the female is. It doesn't look too deep. You can see all this dirt that she kicked back, but it's very deep. It's maybe almost a foot. Now, if I stick my hand in here, I don't feel her. I have to stick my arm all the way in just to grab her. And here she is. Now, you'll see that she's very big compared to the male Russian. Her name's Meowmix, and she was gifted to me maybe a month ago. And she did produce some eggs, actually 2 months ago. She produced some eggs, and already one baby hatched. Now you can see how big she is compared to Boris. Now she does have a thinner head, less long nails, and if we look at her tail, she has a wide V, no concave, very flat, and a more smaller tail with a puckered bent. And that's how they produce the eggs. So they need this space to produce all the eggs. Now the reason she's called Meowmix is because she was fed Meowmix cat food her whole life. Now if you look here, so she has a very long beak. I'm trimming it down a little bit, but that's because of an improper diet. Now she's a pretty good, reasonable size for that matter, and she's healthy overall. But if we look here, look at the size difference. Now he fits on top of her without a concave plastron. So he's like this on top of her. Now they have to be quick. But if you look at the nails, see? Much sharper and longer nails. Well, she has shorter nails. And of course, he is smaller. And like I said, they don't have the big scoot to protect their tail, since they need all that room to produce the eggs. The Russian tortoise goes by many names. The names are, some of the names are Central Asian tortoise, because they do come from Central Asia. The Afghan tortoise, because they do originate from Afghanistan, not Russia. Um, Horsfield's tortoise, because Thomas Horsfield originally found them. That's why their scientific name is Testudo horsfieldii. Now, just because they're called the Russian tortoise doesn't mean they come from Russia. They originally originated from Central Asia or Afghanistan and around there. Now, that was when Russian soldiers were in Afghanistan. They found these guys and brought them home as pets, and that's why their common name is the Russian tortoise in America. But they're a good pet to have. Um, Honestly, you're gonna want to build an outdoor enclosure if you can, but just note they do dig, especially the females. Now, the male, you're gonna want to try to get a male if you're going for indoors because he's very small compared to her. So that's a good thing. But they were the first animal to orbit Earth. Now, their numbers were 23 and 27 on the spaceship from Russia. They orbited Earth and came back safely. Think about it. These tortoises from Earth traveled all around in orbit and then came back down to the ground and survived. And if you look closely, he's pooping right now. He doesn't. They won't necessarily do this, but they will. All tortoises and turtles will usually do that. That's just means that that's one of their, I guess you could say, defense mechanisms. Some tortoises and turtles have musk. Now these guys don't have musk glands, so a key thing that tortoises will do when they're stressed is just poop and pee. That's why you always want to try not to get your hand underneath their bottom side because it will stink. Honestly, I've had that happen before, but you know, once you handle them a lot, they won't usually do that. All my tortoises don't usually do that. Now, they can live up to 100 years old. In captivity, it's been recorded maybe 50 years, but they are herbivorous species. This is some of their leftovers from yesterday. But they don't take in as much protein. Fruit is okay once in a while as a treat, so maybe watermelon, they get watermelon maybe every once a month, or a strawberry if it's really hot, maybe a little bit of strawberry. But they're very herbivorous animals. Like you can see, she's eating some lettuce right now. Um, but they can live up to 50 years in captivity, longer if you have good husbandry. Now, she's younger than Boris, so she has a long life ahead of her. Boris is in middle age, so he's still got some kick into him, but they are a really good pet to have. And let's see, they are herbivorous, like I said. That's why an outdoor enclosure is really great because they can graze on their own. In indoor enclosures, you won't necessarily have that, so it's really nice to have an outdoor enclosure, and that's one way you can file their nails down naturally. Now, with aquariums, let's say bring your, let's say you have maybe almost 1 year old redfoots that are 4 inches, below 4 inches, and you don't want to keep them outside during the night. So you can get a glass aquarium, maybe 100 gallon, depends how much you have, and just keep them in there at night with this heat emitter that doesn't produce that much light. There you go. That's how you do it. But if it's all day inside a glass, it's okay if it's, let's say it's raining, they're fine. But if it's most of their life inside a glass tank, you're gonna want to be careful, and it's not usually the best thing. Now, for some turtles, it's totally fine with them, and honestly, as long as you take really good care of them, it's this good size. Let's say you're building a terrarium with a small leaf turtle in it. That's fine as long as you provide good husbandry. Honestly, though, if you do have a choice, let's say for a Russian tortoise, and you have good weather, they can stay out 365 days a year. Keep them outside. Try your best to. Just taking the factors of how you should keep them outside. You know, let's say I put them under an orange tree. I pick the oranges, the ready ones, every time I see a ready one, so it doesn't fall to the ground. And any green ones that fall to the ground, I just toss out of the enclosure. Um, but you're gonna want to try your best. For some species of turtle, you can keep them inside. Now, but if it's a tortoise, you can keep them outside. Do your best to. Also, on a totally different subject, I just spotted this. There's golden dust day gecko right there. They're an invasive species here. I just spotted that one. He's out basking. We're never gonna get rid of them here in Hawaii. You see them? That's maybe a big male. Yeah, they're an invasive species here. Now, usually I see them every day here. Now, we're just talking about Russian tortoises, but looks like we found an invasive species here. Used to catch them a lot when I was younger. They're very beautiful. They are the mascot of Geico. But you see those three dots, those three orange dots right there? I really love those. And then they have a very light blue on their hands, and then the gold dust and around their head, and then it starts to speckle down into light green, then all the way to a very light blue at the end of the tail. So aren't they pretty? Very nice. Now back to the Russian tortoises. Um, this is Boris. He was gifted to me by a good friend named Mike. Now Boris is maybe 30 years old, like I said. He's a very old male. Still breeds. Hopefully produces fertile offspring next year. But he's doing great. And this was the video about Russian tortoises. And I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video.